This aircraft's one of the very few engine test beds in the world, and that is the throne. That's the guy that runs the show.
And that's why it's necessary to have 20 screens.
That's correct.
We're going inside the Honeywell 757 cockpit. Hey guys, Big Snappy here. I'm here with Doug, and he's one of the pilots on board one of the most sophisticated 757s in the world. Hey Doug.
Good to meet you.
So the Honeywell jet is very special. What do you guys actually do on board here?
So this aircraft, you're correct, is incredibly special. It's one of the very few engine test beds in the world. And you can see the structure that we have added to the actual aircraft, which allows us to hold a motor on the side of the aircraft. We'll fly anything from turboprops to turbofans, turbojets on the side of this aircraft. We can hang radars off the front, so you can test radar. We can do SATCOM. We can do all sorts of communications testing. We have a little bit of space and a little bit of extra power to give, so that's what makes it such a good and really flexible test bed for us to use.
So here at Honeywell, you guys test engines, flight systems, everything. Is there something else that you guys test that could be a bit more special?
Yes, right now we're doing some really interesting work with alerting to the flight crew through the actual flight deck itself. So things like misconfigurations or attempting to take off or land on inappropriate surfaces. We get in all sorts of different systems that range from full flight decks down to radars or individual satellite communications.
So is this plane a one of a kind?
Absolutely. Yeah,
wow.
Absolutely.
And did Honeywell deck it out completely themselves?
Yeah, so the airplane was purchased, I believe, in the mid-2000s. It originally came off the line for Eastern Airlines, and it had a long, good life and service with that airline. And then we picked it up for at sort of its end of life for the engine test bed.
I'd be really interested to look through the back of this plane. Can we have a look?
Absolutely.
Let's go.
So you can see as you make your way through here, it's the old first class seating from Eastern Airlines. And what you just ducked underneath of is actually the engine, the structural pylon, right? So if you peek out this door, you'll see where the engine gets mounted to the outside of the airplane.
You guys test jet engines and props and everything.
Yeah, so we make turboprop engines, we make jet engines, turbofans predominantly now. And so yeah, any of those can find their way onto the side of the airplane. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I noticed there's no roof lining. What's up with that?
Yeah, so in this case, I'm sure it's a lot of weight. You can get access to wires, right? We can get everything that we need to with the venting for like heating, ventilation, and cooling and whatnot, right? And so as you make your way through the airplane, if you don't need anything to block these wires, then we can do maintenance on this.
Yeah.
This is a great example of an engineering station in the back of a test bed like this, right? So from here, if we did have one of those test engines on the side of the airplane, Garrett could actually run the engine while we're flying the airplane. And so you can go back and forth and you have to work as a crew.
And that's why it's necessary to have 20 screens.
Yeah, that's correct. You think about like Garrett in this case, that is the throne. That's the guy that runs the show, right? So if he's running an engine test, there may be people looking at specific parameters, but all of those focal to him, right?
Yeah.
So it ends up being that each of these bays and seating stations may do a particular job, but they as a group are going to do and execute the test on.
So everyone here is working together.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it makes it a very unique type of crew. Very different from anything else that you see in the aerospace industry. Flight Test is its own like special little monster. There's one more very special and cool thing that I wanted to show you, which is that big reel right there. This is the sort of background and the piece that actually works with what we call a trailing cone, right? So an aircraft gets pitot and static inputs to know how fast and how high you're flying.
Yeah.
Static inputs on an aircraft are never quite perfect though.
Yeah.
So to get the cleanest air that you possibly can to measure static pressure, we can actually run a cone out behind the airplane. And if you look at the top of the tail, you'll see there's like a little hose sticking out of it.
Yeah.
This reel will actually allow the cone to go back far enough away from the wake of a 240,000 pound airplane that you can actually get clean static air while you're doing testing on the front as well. So really, really neat stuff. Again, that's a pretty common thing to find in flight tests, but this is what it looks like inside. Not many people get to actually see that kind of stuff.
You guys test everything that Honeywell puts together at altitude, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we have 10 airplanes that are specifically focused on taking care of Honeywell products end to end. I mean, that ranges in size from the 7.5 that you're standing in all the way down to a Cirrus size aircraft. So we hit the full gamut with a helicopter in the middle. So we're here to support Honeywell in all of its future ventures with our surrogate aircraft or specific aircraft.
It's amazing how much research and engineering you guys do, and this just displays the quality of Honeywell.
I really appreciate that. It's a pleasure having you on board.
Thank you for the interview.
Absolutely.